On the upcoming anniversary of the international conspiracy, I think it's important that we recognize that the arrest and political imprisonment of Öcalan nearly 24 years ago was meant to deal a blow to the Kurdish freedom movement. And the Turkish state thought that if they could put Öcalan behind bars, that they could also lock up the ideas of the people and the people's hope and will for a better future. Um, Turkey continues to impose isolation on Öcalan because it fears the consequences of his ideas and the influence of his ideas on people. But these ideas are already flourishing, and clearly efforts to suppress them are bound to fail. Turkey wants to silence Kurdish calls for freedom, but people all over the world know how successful the struggles for freedom can be based on the example of the people of Kurdistan, and they're spreading these messages even farther. So I think it's very important for those of us standing in solidarity with the peoples of Kurdistan, commemorate the international conspiracy, and realize that European leaders continue to be implicit with the ambitions of Turkey and the continuing imprisonment of Öcalan. And we must continue to demand freedom of Öcalan. He's a political prisoner. This is a violation of international law. And we must demand that the PKK be delisted from the international list of terrorist organizations. These are very, very important steps going forward, not only for addressing the Kurdish question, but for building justice more broadly.
I actually met Öcalan before he was captured. Here's a picture of Öcalan and me in Damascus, Syria, when I met him and presented him two of my books. It is not only good for the Kurds, but it is good for Turkey that Öcalan at least be put on some type of house arrest, released from prison, because with Öcalan out of prison and negotiating with Turkey, we can maybe come to the beginnings of a settlement if Öcalan is released. This is not just something good for the Kurds, it's good for the Turkish government. Another way to win-win is to delist the Kurds, delist the PKK. It is not helping things to go around calling your opposite number a terrorist. Again, I believe that freedom for Öcalan would lead to some serious negotiations between the PKK and Turkey.
There is no excuse for what's been happening to Abdullah Öcalan. It's a shocking situation that's happened. Now, there are various elements to why this is going on and why he's in isolation, why he's not being allowed to see his legal team, his lawyers. This is simply because the Turkish state has no defense. There is no defense, and they will not allow a proper discussion or discourse to take place. Abdullah Öcalan and the PKK have shown themselves to be willing to talk, willing to negotiate, willing to enter into ceasefire. This is what Öcalan and his comrades have done. They have shown this willingness to participate. But Turkey do not want any change. They simply want to be rid of Kurdistan. We all have the right to hope, but we cannot rely on rights. There is no right to anything. All we are human beings. You find in a fascist dictatorship like Turkey is the actual denial of someone to be a human being. This is why they're doing what they're doing, and they're killing people. They never have, there is no right for Turkish citizens, whether they're Kurds or non-Kurds. That just doesn't happen. It's only if it fits the agenda of the state.
Former Minister of Justice and Interior of the Iceland and member of the International Peace Delegation to Imrali, Ögmundur Jónasson, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our main topic today is international conspiracy and freedom for Öcalan. Mr. Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan, international conspiracy targeted to the democratic confederalism ideas of Mr. Öcalan's after Öcalan. After 24 years, still Öcalan is under isolation and resisting in order to bring to peace to the Middle East. It was an international conspiracy. And how would you comment on the international conspiracy? What did the Western powers aim with that?
Well, sometimes it is good to pause and contemplate. And today, there is such a moment in time because on this day, October the 8th, 1998, 24 years ago, as you mentioned, Abdullah Öcalan was forced to leave Damascus. What is important to remember is that he was forced to leave not at the request of the public, not because it was seen to be of public concern to have him leave Syria. He was forced to leave at the request of the Turkish military and the United States, and after seeking refuge in other countries, it became evident that also NATO was involved because no NATO country would accept him. And again, it was not the public, not the people, but state authority that requested that he be forced to leave Damascus. And we know what happened then. But I want to say it because of the political dimension we can learn from, namely that Abdullah Öcalan was invited by Nelson Mandela, the president of South Africa, to come to his country. He knew from his own experience, himself having been a freedom fighter and held in prison for more than a quarter of a century for opposing apartheid, he realized what was at stake. But as we know, on the way to South Africa, Abdullah Öcalan was abducted by the Turkish military, the CIA, and the Israeli secret services, Mossad, and consequently imprisoned on Imrali Island, where he has been held in isolation for almost a quarter of a century. But here is what is to be learned and remembered. Just as Nelson Mandela and the black population of South Africa did overcome, Abdullah Öcalan and Kurdish freedom fighters will also overcome, because regardless of state power and military concerns, it is of public concern, not only for Kurds, but for the great mass of people in all countries, not least in the Middle East, that Abdullah Öcalan be released and thereby help implement his ideas of inclusive democracy, of gender equality, and protection of the environment. This is why we need Abdullah Öcalan as a free man. And this is why, wherever we live, whether it be in Kurdistan, in Turkey, Syria, or Iceland, we are all raising this demand today: freedom for Abdullah Öcalan, peace in Kurdistan.
Dear Ögmundur, also another issue is about you underlined the importance of freedom for Öcalan, but also the delisting the PKK also is another issue. Many MEPs, many member of parliaments as well, they are all saying that keeping PKK under the forbidden organizations is, and keeping Mr. Öcalan under isolation is two faces of the same problem, basically. So do you think the Europe has a willingness to delist the PKK and free Öcalan? How would you going to evaluate this situation? Because these two topics are related as well.
They certainly are. And in Europe and in the European Parliament, they keep talking about the importance of justice. Now, the Belgian High Court has come to the conclusion that PKK should be delisted that it should not be regarded as a terrorist organization, which it is not. And this, of course, has tremendous importance for the Kurdish freedom fight and for all those associated with this fight, that PKK be delisted and that we listen to what the Belgian court has said about justice. So this is a lesson to be learned in Brussels and in all parts of the world, which wrongly look at the Kurdish freedom fight as a terrorist fight. It is not. It is a fight for democracy. It's a fight for freedom, and should be our concern to look at it that way.
Dear Ögmundur, also very shortly, very briefly, what is your message on the 9th October International Conspiracy for Freedom for Abdullah Öcalan? Very shortly, please.
Well, it can be said in one sentence. It is our common concern that Abdullah Öcalan be freed, because this is the precondition for establishing peace in Kurdistan, and this will in the end serve the people not only of Kurdistan, this will also serve the people of Turkey, of Syria, of Iraq, Iran. Freedom for us, Abdullah Öcalan is our common concern.
Former Minister of Justice in Interior of the Iceland and member of the International Peace Delegation to Imrali, Ögmundur Jónasson. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.